listening to In the Name of God from Kingdom Trust in Belfast, Northern Ireland, an international faith-based show comprising music, news and interviews from all over the world. Hi, I'm Raymond McCulloch, and this is our 11th show of our In the Name of God series. Once again, we have a variety of music today from Canada, Chicago, USA and Australia. And we begin a two-part interview with two Canadian ladies who recently travelled to the UK and Europe to speak out about the abortion holocaust. Of course, we also have our usual faith-based news feature, Bread News International. We started the show today with red-haired girl of Tulloch from Reid in Nova Scotia, Canada. We'll have more great music for you shortly, but first, let me introduce my guests for today, Maureen and Denise. Maureen Brown is a member and former councillor of the Cree First Nation in northern Manitoba, and Denise Mountenay from Alberta founded Canada Silent No More and has written a book of her own abortion experience called Forgiven of Murder. Between them, Maureen and Denise have had 5 abortions, and when they came over to Belfast to make women here and in Europe aware of the dangers of abortion, I spent a full day with them. We begin with an amazing story from Maureen. You shared a little bit earlier. Perhaps you could just tell me again about what happened to you before you made any commitment to the Creator. What happened in your life, and it's tied up with what you're doing here, both of you. So
okay, well, back in the early 80s, I was just a young lady and young woman, and I actually had 2 abortions. I was 23 at the time when I had the first one, and 23 when I had the second one. But after the second one, I was on a bus going home and feeling very, very depressed and a lot of guilt and shame over what I had done.
I take it as a Cree person, as a Native American person, that this goes against your whole tribal tradition. Am I right?
Absolutely. Because at a very young age, you're taught that our lives belong to the Creator. Our children are not our own, that the Creator owns our children and they belong to Him, and He alone gives life and takes life. So I knew going into the abortion that I was going against everything that I had been taught.
So how come you made that decision then to go ahead? I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of young women listening to this, or maybe they're even in that situation, or in a week or a year or a month. Yeah. They may be in that situation. How were you persuaded to go against everything that was kind of naturally in you?
Well, it made it a lot easier when going into the clinic and finding out about abortion and hearing the lies of, it's not really a baby, it's just tissue.
This is what they told you in the clinic?
This is what they told me, and so that gave me the okay that I needed to hear, even though, in the
background
back of my mind, I realized that I was committing murder.
Obviously, it probably didn't occur to you in those strange circumstances that these guys have a vested interest, they're going to make money out of this?
Oh, didn't even occur to me, no.
They were just there to help you,
Absolutely, yeah. Wow. And the thing that I'd like to mention is that in our tribes, they actually have funerals for babies that are maybe 12 weeks miscarried.
It's something I've learned myself in my time with Native people, that there's a great thing of respect. You don't pull someone's hair, you don't step over them if they're sitting, on the ground. So this would be all part of that tradition. Can I just ask you, for the sake of people listening, what is your tribal background? What tribe do you come from?
I come from the Cree tribe. We're the biggest nation in Canada. We extend from Quebec all the way to British Columbia, and out of 633 First Nations in Canada, actually 634 now, we make up over 50% of the tribes.
So it's the bulk of First Nations in Canada. And where is your reserve?
Actually, I'm from northern Manitoba. I'm from the Swampy Creek tribe. And
so here you are, you've just had, is this the second abortion?
Yes, my second abortion.
And you're feeling I'm guilty or?
Totally devastated. I'm feeling guilty. Like I said, I grew up knowing that our life does not belong to us. But not only that, prior to deciding on that second abortion, I had a dream about Jesus.
You weren't from any Christian tradition, really, or I mean?
Well, there was an Anglican church that I learned from my mother, who was one of the, women on the reserve that participated with the Anglican Christian Women's Club. Actually, her family was one of the first Christian families in Western Canada. But I didn't realize all this until after I became a Christian. And so what happened was I was on a bus heading home after this trauma, and I met an angel.
Great song there from White Cross vocalist Scott Wenzel from Chicago and On the Wings of the Wind. Let's hear some more now from Maureen about that angel who got on the bus.
He was tall. He had short blonde hair. He had this incredible presence whereby he got on the bus. I still remember it so clearly. He got on the bus and I was in the back. And I was probably like 98 pounds soaking wet. I was devastated. I had just did this. I dreamt about Jesus actually showing me what I was about to do. It was like a comic strip. He was holding this little baby, and he was so happy. And as the strip went on, at the end he was carrying this dead baby. And
Close
I
to
still
the actual...
went ahead and did.
And how close to the event did you have that experience?
Just a week prior to the abortion.
So you met this guy, you believe he was an angel, he came on the bus?
Yes, he came on the bus was crowded. You know what's interesting? As devastated, I think about this a lot, as devastated and broken as I was, this man got on the bus, and the bus was packed. Well, you know, there were seats here and there, very crowded. And I don't know if you've traveled on the bus, but when it's packed, nobody wants to really share their seat with you, right? And so I'm sitting in the back watching him come on, and as he's getting on, people are putting their bags on their empty seat. And my heart was just moved with such compassion for him. As broken as I was, I had my bag on my seat, and I just took it off so he could sit down.
You made him welcome?
Yeah. And from there, he, we just chatted a bit, and then he said, God sent me to tell you that he knows what you did. He saw what you did. And he sent me to tell you that he loves you and he forgives you. And there is nothing that will ever separate you from his love. And he sent me to tell you this.
How did that make you feel?
Oh, you have to understand, I was on the bus, it was crowded, and I just wept. I cried. People on the bus were concerned about, is this guy bothering
you? Yeah.
And whatever. But all I remember is him speaking these words of life. And when I think back to that time, I think about his words. It was like water. I know that sounds kind of strange, but it wasn't even like, they were words, but it was like water coming out of his mouth. It was like touched by an angel, for real.
Did he stay on the bus for the whole journey, or?
He got off the next stop.
Guess he had another errand to do. Angels are busy guys, eh? That is amazing.
And that was my journey to Jesus.
How long after that did you make a commitment to?
I think about 2 years. I studied the Bible for a year before I made a commitment.
So you thought long and hard and serious?
Oh yeah, I knew it wasn't
a big step.
Yeah, it was a very big step.
Red News International. In this bulletin, police say step up security in Nigeria and defend reporting freedom, and Jesus was a gypsy. Jerry McCulloch reports.
When a gypsy becomes a Christian, the change is extraordinary, says Rudy Walter. He should know. Once in the grip of a drug and gambling addiction, he is a living example of a Sinti who has been powerfully transformed by an encounter with Christ. Now, as scripture use specialist on a Sinti Romani Bible translation project, he is eager to see God's word change the lives of many more gypsies. Jesus speaks Romani, and this touches our hearts, Rudy explains. It is our language, and he speaks in Romani into our problems. Rudy was born near Frankfurt, Germany. His family did well, selling cars, carpets and diamonds house to house. They travelled throughout Europe in their live-in trailer. But the transient life presented challenges. For Rudy, it meant only 5 years of schooling. Rudy said that many Sinti, 25 years and older, are barely literate. An addiction to gambling and drugs clutched Rudy after his father died of cancer. Then Rudy met up with one of his Sinti friends, Ricardo, who had been delivered from 17 years of drug addiction after becoming a Christian. Ricardo encouraged Rudy to go to his church. When Rudy finally did, he became a Christian. I noticed that the thought that I needed to gamble was gone, and also the alcoholic addiction disappeared. Jesus has given me a whole new life, he says.
Release International is warning that unless Nigeria steps up security to prevent violence against Christians in Jos, the situation could spiral out of control. Following the murder of 3 reporters, Christian human rights organisation Release is also calling for journalists to be protected so the truth can be openly reported. A reporter from Nigeria's The Nation daily newspaper was shot dead at his home in Lagos, and Christians have been mourning the death of 2 journalists working for the religious press and 5 others who were murdered by suspected Islamic extremists. Nigeria's opposition party, the Action Congress, warns that journalists are becoming an endangered species and fears the security situation is worsening. Hundreds have been killed in religious violence in Jos this year. Jos, in Plateau State, sits squarely between Nigeria's mainly Muslim north and the country's mainly Christian south. Tensions have been building along religious and tribal fault lines. Ongoing violence in Plateau State has claimed an estimated 50,000 lives since 2001. An influx of jihadists from countries like Chad has helped poison the atmosphere. Jos is a potential tinderbox, says Release International's CEO Andy Dipper. Unless the government brings the violence under control, there could be an explosion of aggression that would spread throughout divided communities in the land. It would be a mistake to see the aggression between Muslims and Christians as evenly balanced, says Andy Dipper. Many of the instigators are Muslim extremists who want to drive Christians out from predominantly Muslim areas. Some Christians we have spoken to say they are being provoked to defend their property, but many more say that as Christ was opposed to violence, they will heed his call to forgive their enemies and to pray for their persecutors.
More information on these and other bread news stories at kingdomcome.org.uk/news.
And now we hear from Denise, who has an equally harrowing story.
Denise, why have you come all the way from Edmonton, Alberta?
Well, basically, God has called me to be a voice for the voiceless and to share my testimony about the pain of abortion and how it's hurting women. And I think my testimony is very typical of what's been happening to a lot of women in our generation.
So you've had one abortion, is that right?
No, I've had multiple abortions. Studies show that women who've had one abortion, that a third of them or more, almost half now, have had multiple abortions. So one or more.
Darren, you go on in the same vein.
Yeah, what's been happening is in our generation, sadly and tragically, we've been using abortion as a violent form of birth control. And we believe the lies. And so I believe that God has called me and called women like me to be a voice for the voiceless, to expose the lies of the enemy, because Satan is a liar. He's the father of lies and a murderer from the beginning. And he's getting away with cold-blooded murder every day, not only in our nations, but in the nations around the world.
Tell me, you're saying that a woman who's had one abortion will quite likely go on to have another one. So how did that first abortion come about?
Well, most women are pressured into having an abortion. They don't really want one, but they're pressured by boyfriends, by husbands, fear, mothers. In my situation, I was raped at the age of 13, never told anyone, turned to alcohol and drugs, you know.
So the abortion didn't come out of the rape, but
no,
but your lifestyle.
Very rarely does that happen, actually, where women get pregnant as a result of rape. But at 16, I had, my first love, what I thought was my first love, and I got pregnant. And long story short is when I first found out I was pregnant, in my mind at 16, I was going to have a baby. And I, was making plans. I knew my parents would be disappointed, but I'm pregnant and they're going to be grandparents. But when I told my mother that I was pregnant, her advice to me was, Denise, honey, she said, you're only 16. You've got your whole life ahead of you. She said, why don't you come with me and you can have this operation and forget about it and get on with my life. So I thought, I can get unpregnant. And so I thought, well, if it's okay with my mom and it's okay with the government and the doctors are doing it, then I thought, well, it must be okay.
Made it easier.
And so, like a lot of women, I was led to the slaughter. And so I went ahead and had that first abortion at the age of 16.
After the abortion, did you have any regrets? Or
I just tried to push it behind me and get on with my life.
Suppress it?
Okay, suppressed it, totally. What we find is that most women will first find a very temporary sense of relief after the big crisis of being pregnant and not planning it. And then a lot of women will try and justify, well, I was only 16, well, you know, I wanted my career, you know, it was bad timing, this or that, whatever. And we try to justify it, but one day it hits you.
So there's kind of like a battle going on there almost from the word go.
Yeah. But one day you realize, oh my gosh, this was my baby. These were my children. So I ended up, you know, the second time when I got pregnant, when I asked the doctor what was developed, he took a piece of paper and he put a dot on the page and he said, I said, what's there? What's really developed? He said, oh, it's just a clump of tissue. It's nothing. Well, he lied to me.
Right.
I was 8 to 9 weeks pregnant at that time.
So the baby would have had little fingers and...
I had no idea that your heartbeat and my children's heartbeat began to beat 3 weeks after conception. From the moment of conception, all the DNA is there. You know, a sperm by itself will die. An egg by itself will die. But once those two unite, all the DNA, everything is there from the moment of conception.
Is going and growing.
And the amazing thing is God has a purpose and a plan for every person conceived in His image. And God hates the shedding of innocent blood, and it pollutes the land.
Can I ask you what age you were when that second time? What age?
I was 26 the second time.
So this was what, 10 years
10
after
years
the
later.
first one?
Exactly, 10 years later. When I told my boyfriend at the time that I was pregnant, he went into a fit of rage. He's got really angry. He started yelling at me. He said he hated me, never wanted to see me again. I better have an abortion. You know, I was brokenhearted. I was devastated, you know, the way he acted. But the second time I had an abortion was wide awake in a clinic. You know, without going into great detail with you right now, you know, I wrote a book about it called Forgiven of Murder, a true story. But the main point there was just, I was another number. When it was my turn to go into where they were doing the actual procedure, actually, to be honest, I felt like I was being raped again. Just the way it's done. I went through the most excruciating pain that you can imagine. Just feeling like my whole insides were being ripped out of me. I was screaming and begging the abortionist to stop it. You know, I don't want to do this anymore. I changed my mind. When it was over, I curled up into a fetal position on the table, and I felt like my brain had snapped, and I couldn't even speak. I went into some kind of shock. And when the nurse came over, you know, she just said, hurry up, you can't stay here all day, you know, like absolutely no compassion.
So there was a lot of aftercare, not?
No aftercare at all. Anyway, after that traumatic experience, I went into a deep, deep depression. I went on a leave of absence from my job. I isolated from family, friends, everyone. I booked myself into YWCA, and I went into a pit of despair for months. And then one day, a girlfriend came who I hadn't seen in a long time, and she had heard, you know, that I was really isolating, and she just wanted me to come out and go party again, you know.
Right.
So I was like,
Get your life together?
Yeah, get my life together, let's go party. So I ended up getting back into the drinking and drugs heavily, and got pregnant again. I don't even know who the father was. Okay. And I think because of the shame of not even knowing who the father was, I just thought, I can't go through this. And just very ignorantly, but I thought there's no way I'm having an abortion wide awake again. So I went back to a hospital where they put me to sleep, and I had my third abortion. Her name was Rebecca.
You'll have to wait until next week to hear the rest of Denise's inspiring story. Or in the meantime, you can order her book from the link on our website. We finish the show off now with a tune from Australian Pete Hawkes called Celtic Hornblower. You've been listening to In the Name of God from Kingdom Come Trust in Belfast, Northern Ireland. If you would like to contribute to this ministry, go to the partner page under radio on the Kingdom Come Trust website. That's www.kingdomcome.org.uk. You can make a monthly contribution or a one-off gift there. Join us again next week for more music, news, and the second part of our abortion holocaust interviews with Maureen and Denise. Your emails are always very encouraging. Keep writing to us. Slán agus Banatia. Bye and God bless.